Oh, in 2 minutes' time we'll be starting, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to take your seats. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and... Oh, my goodness. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I shall get that away so we don't hopefully get any feedback and upset Mr. Wibley. Firstly, I say we're at the Ocean Suite this evening. I'll give Mr. Gazard time to take his seat. It's all right. It's all right, Steve. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of East Devon District Council on the 22nd of February 2023. I'm your chair for the evening, Councillor Ian Thomas. We're meeting here at the Ocean in Exmouth following decision of the council meeting in October that council and all committees and subcommittees will return to physical meetings unless subcommittees will return to hold virtual meetings until a new hybrid system for running the meetings is installed in the council chamber. Now, of course, it does make rather a mockery of that when we have a nice, bit spacious council chamber and we're here because it's too tight for the numbers, yet we managed to find ourselves squeezed into the alcove at the end of the room. But just to let everybody know that the chair will be applying for a very significant discount to the honey hire charges this evening to reflect that. This meeting can be viewed live online on the Council's YouTube channel from across the world, or if anybody wants to watch it again, if it isn't enough first one time round. And I'd also like to remind members that it's a large meeting, so could colleagues please use their microphones when they speak and ensure that they're muted when not in use to avoid disturbance from the background noise. Our agenda is available online at the East Devon District Council website, and we'll now start the meeting with a roll call of members. When you hear your name, please confirm your attendance by saying present. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen. Here. Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barrow. Councillor Bickley. Councillor Blakey. Councillor Bloxham. Oh no, apologies. Councillor Bonetta.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Burrup.
Present.
Councillor Cahill.
Present.
Councillor Chapman. Councillor Coleman. Councillor Davey. Councillor Desarum. Councillor Dent.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Faithful.
Present.
Councillor Gazard. Councillor Hall,
Present.
Councillor Hartnell, Councillor Hawkins, Councillor Haywood, Councillor Hookway, Councillor Howe,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Hughes, Councillor Ingham, Councillor Jackson,
Present, thanks, Sue.
Councillor Jarvis, Councillor Johns,
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Young,
Present.
Councillor Kemp, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Ledger,
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Manley, Councillor oh, still on my list. Councillor Moulding,
Present.
Councillor Parr, Councillor Pepper, Councillor Rickson, Councillor Rowland,
Present.
Councillor Rylance? Coming. Right. Okay. Councillor Skinner?
Present.
Councillor Taylor? Present. Councillor Thomas?
Present.
Councillor Whibley? Present. Councillor Woodward? Present. Councillor Ragg? Present. Councillor Chris Wright? And Councillor Tom Wright?
Thank you very much. I can pleased to declare that the meeting is quorate. Agenda item 1 is public speaking. I've got 4 public speakers this evening. I'd like to, it's okay, call you in order and just to remind you that you'll have 3 minutes to speak and you'll be given a reminder 30 seconds before the end of that time period. The first speaker I've got listed this evening is Councillor Jane Shano. Hopefully I've pronounced the name correctly. Thank you very much. Jane, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm addressing the Council in relation to agenda item 10E and motion 14. I'm a parish councillor with Farringdon. We're pleased that the scrutiny committee led by Councillor Allen has recognised there are significant issues with the emerging local plan, both in terms of the changes to government policy and further in the way this is delivered to the residents of East Devon through Regulation 18 consultation. The so-called consultation failed on so many levels. For example, the use of Commonplace app was complained of being difficult to use and lacked inclusivity to non-IT users. Despite Farringdon being at the centre of option 1, the constantly referred to preferred option, which biased thinking from the outset to all who read the proposals for a new town, and also option 2, parishioners were not even afforded a consultation in their own village hall. Further, such an important decision for the community being rolled out over the Christmas period was of concern. As a parish council, we were dismayed to be provided with a consultation pack by EDDC, where there was no mention of the master plan vision, which was presented by the landowner and developers agent at the Strategic Planning Committee on the 1st of November. At this meeting, they were shown detailed plans for option 1, which included a road running right through the parish. Further investigation led to our finding out this was presented to members of the SPC in February-March 2020 as a glossy brochure, whilst at the time Farringdon was preparing its neighbourhood plan, adopted in 2021 by the council following an 89% vote in favour in the May elections. This perceived lack of transparency was of significant concern to us as a parish council and to our parishioners, where they're all at the centre of the so-called preferred option. The way in which the Regulation 18 consultation was conducted was not fit for purpose. It will need to be revisited not only for the reasons put before you today, but as the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill has now led to a significant change in the government's approach to local planning policy. We're currently in the consultation period for the new National Planning Policy Framework. The SPC have acknowledged the need to put the emerging local plan on hold until the new NPPF is adopted and available in the spring, although I'm not sure the Council have actually seen the minutes of that meeting on the 14th of February. It is of concern that there are technical aspects which are to be continued with when it is evident there's a need to revisit all the evidence which forms the basis of the current emerging local plan. We ask, therefore, the Council vote for the following motions in extension of Councillor Allen's motion 14. The Council instructs strategic planning in the offices to place the emerging local plan on hold, and that the sustainability appraisal and supporting evidence base, including the housing needs assessment and the HELA, which have all been prepared pursuant to the current version of the NPPF, must be revisited following the adoption of the new NPPF expected this spring. Once that review has taken place, the emerging local plan should be revised accordingly, and a further Regulation 18 consultation must be undertaken, which will take on board and positively action all the concerns raised by the Scrutiny Committee, so there can be a full and transparent consultation which is inclusive and enables all East Devon residents to be able to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. I've got Councillor Rob Hatton to speak next, which is on the same subject. But just to give a little warning, I'll ask Councillor Dan Ledger, as Chair of Strategic Planning Committee, to respond to the two questions, if you'd like to. I know he was around earlier on, after the second speaker's spoken. Sorry, Councillor Hatton. Rob.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Chairman of Bishopcliff Parish Council, and I'm speaking on relating to item 10E and motion 14. We welcome this motion to recompile the local plan. We question the prudence of continuing with the local plan process until the revised National Planning Policy Framework has been issued by government. The revised NPPF is likely to permit reductions in housing numbers. A number of other local authorities have suspended work on new local plans for this reason. The government has made provision for this to happen without disadvantaging councils. Paragraph 17 of the NPPF consultation document states, authorities can begin planning in line with these changes should they be implemented following public consultation in spring 2023. We recognise that any changes to emerging plans which are necessary may result in delays to getting an up-to-date plan in place. So, to reduce the risk of communities being exposed to speculative development, we propose the following time-limited arrangements. For the purposes of decision-making, where emerging local plans have been submitted for examination, or where they have been subject to a Regulation 18 or 19 consultation, which included both a policies map and proposed allocations towards meeting housing need, those authorities will benefit from a reduced housing land supply requirement. This will be a requirement to demonstrate a 4-year supply of land for housing instead of the usual 5. These arrangements would apply for a period of 2 years from the point that these changes to the framework take effect, since our objective is to provide time for review while incentivising plan adoption. However, the whole process needs reviewing in the light of the new NPPF. This would include revising the sustainability appraisal and the supporting evidence base, including the housing needs assessment and the housing and economic land availability assessment, which have all been prepared in line with the current version of the NPPF. To this end, we also support the extension of the motion proposed by Farringdon Parish Council. And we also hope that the process, as it's carried forward, can be more bottom-up and inclusive than previously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. As a general principle, I'm afraid we can't accept motions from the floor at the meeting this evening. But as hopefully some consolation to that, if I could ask Councillor Ledger, as Chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, to give his first response to your comments.
Chair, if I may, could I speak at the item? I don't want to prejudice myself by speaking about a motion ahead of time.
Okay, if you're happy
Thank
to do that, then hopefully our speakers will hang on until we get to that item now. Beyond that, next I've got Oliver Russell, who wants to speak in relation to motion number 12. Oliver.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Oliver Russell, and I use he and they pronouns. I'm a secondary school teacher in the pastoral team at Cranbrook Education Campus, and I'd like to speak about motion 12, item 12, the motion regarding transgender visibility. When putting together what to say this evening, I struggled to think about what was best to share, but I thought it was important to share my experiences as a non-binary person living and working in East Devon, along with those experiences and thoughts of some of my students here too. We hear so many statistics that sound disheartening, and news stories about trans young people like Brianna Gay. Whilst heartbreaking, these all seem too impersonal, and I don't think that people realise that there is a problem on our doorstep. That is why I think it's so important that I share with you the stories of the young people and myself in our community. I sat down with a group of LGBT+ students this week and asked them if they thought the UK was transphobic. They all nodded. That scared me. I then spoke individually with a few students who identify as either trans or non-binary and asked for their opinions. They all told me that life for them was hard, and they told me that life was made even harder for them because of their gender identity. They told me that they experienced transphobic bullying from people in their community, mainly outside of the school walls. We deal with instances of LGBT-phobic bullying well in our school, but it doesn't stop it from happening. As for outside the school walls, we've struggled to protect them. We have been able to minimise LGBT-phobic bullying by increasing representation of all aspects of the LGBT+ community. We found that we were focusing lots on the L and the G, but we were often forgetting the other letters, especially the T. As a non-binary person living and working in East Devon, I've had my fair share of discrimination in the local community. When I first started working in my school, my identity came as quite a shock to most people, as I was one of the first openly LGBT people to teach there. The young people didn't quite know how to interact with me, and I believe this was solely due to the fact that people that speak openly about being non-binary or LGBT+ just don't exist much. It was through lots of work with many people on campus having difficult conversations that we were able to change views when it came to trans and non-binary people. We still have a lot of work to do to tackle transphobia and discrimination. However, through raising awareness, empowering people to speak up, and challenging discriminatory views, we've been able to make our campus a much more open and welcoming place for trans and non-binary students, staff, and our families. We've been able to have such change in our organisation because people have realised that transphobia and discrimination towards non-binary people and LGBT+ people is a real issue now and one that needs to be tackled. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Bethany Collins, to speak on the same motion, please, same item, please.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is Bethany and I am a non-binary teaching assistant at Avanti Hall School in Exeter, but I live in Ottery St Mary. And growing up as an LGBTQ+ person in East Devon was a challenge. I didn't see anybody with diverse gender identities growing up, not on TV, not in the media, and certainly not at school. There was a lot more representation of different sexualities when I was growing up. However, this didn't extend to gender identities. And so I spent a lot of my early life growing up not having a clue who I was. And it was only through learning about other identities and seeing them represented as I got older that I was able to not only understand myself, but understand the wider community in which I live. My school is a very diverse school. We have a fantastic group called The Space, in which our children are able to explore safely their identities and to discuss their questions and just figure out a little bit more about themselves, but also other people. And I think that it's really important that we have those spaces. But without those spaces, unfortunately, as we've seen, the rise in hate crimes against LGBTQ+ people have only increased. And I think it is through representation and through visibility of just ordinary people like you and I with different identities that we're able to make change, and we're able to just grow our communities as a more positive and safe place for everybody. Because as a teaching assistant, it is my job to ensure that these children thrive, and we can only do that when we create a culture of inclusivity. And we just, we encourage children in all aspects of their lives, whichever path they choose to go down. And exploring different identities is part of that. And the only way we can continue doing that is to keep talking about it and to keep making people's identities known. Because if I'd had somebody like myself in my school that was open about their identity, I would have felt a lot more supported and a lot more seen. And I think that's what it's all about, really. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bethany, and thank you to all four speakers. I just assure you that when the items come forward later on, certainly Councillor Bonetta will take your comments into account, and as will the rest of members in relation to all the items this evening. So, in the interim, thank you very much for coming along this evening. Second, agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If anybody's got any comments on our council meeting held on the 7th of December, could you please raise your hand? Oops, so I'm seeing at the back.
It's Chris Burrup.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I was trying to look over the top there. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a minor point. In the motion for voter ID, I allegedly said 800 people voted for me. That's not quite true. 800 people voted. Regrettably, they didn't all vote for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that correction, Chris. There are so many comments all of us could make in response to that, but unfortunately, the voters don't always get it right, do they? Moving on, if we can note that comment. We like to keep a little bit of humour in council meetings. Right? It's a struggle some days, it really is. Anyway, that we note that in the absence of any other comments, could we please, members, indicate those in favour, please, of adopting the minutes? Any against? Or no abstentions? Thank you very much. On that basis, I confirm minutes of council on the 7th of December are agreed as a true record. Agenda item 3 is apologies. I've so far received apologies from councillors Kim Bloxham, Sarah Chamberlain, Ian Chubb, Kathy Gardner, David Key, John Loudon, Tony McCollum, Jeff Pook, Jeff Pratt, and Phil Twiss. And from Honorary Alderman Trevor Cope. Do we have any other apologies? Sue?
No, I haven't received any, Chair.
No. Ooh. Councillor Skinner, what are you apologising for? All right, sorry. Thank you very much. We've noted that. Is that okay? That cover everybody? Next item is agenda item 4, declarations of interest. We'll take these by exception, please. And again, mindful of the new code of conduct, would you please state your declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, exactly what your interest is, and the specific type of interest. And if you get it wrong, you're in trouble. Any declaration? Oh, Councillor Hayward, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of agenda item 9 and agenda item 13, I'd like to declare an effects NRI in respect of my employment with 3 local authorities in East Devon. That's All Saints Parish Council, Childstock Parish Council and Axminster Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does that cover everybody? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Councillor Rylands. How are you?
Thank you, Chair. I apologise for my lateness. There
What,
was a lot
wrong,
of traffic.
wrong sort of leaves on the track, was it?
I don't know what's
No.
going on. An hour to do 15 miles. Not brilliant. So I'm not quite sure whether it's an effects NRI, but item 10A, I own a holiday let above my garage. That's to do with the council tax being brought in for holiday lets, potentially at some point in the future. Is it a DPI?
Oh, I've got the dodgy microphone. I'll move my head. I think it's probably, if it's on your register of interest, it's more likely to be a DPI, in which case I think leave the room. Okay.
Right, Sarah,
I'll leave the room.
you don't need to leave yet.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor.
In respect to item 9 and 14, I have an effects NRI, but following the advice of the previous monitoring officer, I'm not required to disclose those as their sensitive interests held under section 32 of the Localism Act 2011. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that no more hands raised. We'll move on therefore to agenda item 5, matters of urgency. I have no matters of urgency to be dealt with this evening. Agenda item 6, announcements from the chair and or leader. Well, I'm doing the chair first, and unfortunately they're the ones that become all too familiar to us as councillors as time progresses. We've lost 2 former colleagues over the course of the last 6 weeks. Firstly, former councillor Ken Potter. Alderman Ken Potter passed away in hospital on Thursday the 19th of January with heart problems coupled with multiple health issues over the last few years. The title of Honorary Alderman was conferred on Ken in 2015 in recognition of his eminent service to East Devon District Council. Personally, I've got extremely fond memories of Ken as a gentle gentleman, particularly in his diligent and incisive yet diplomatic and polite approach to his roles as Chair of Audit and Governance and Member Champion for Post Offices. Those who knew him will know there was nobody, and probably will be nobody in East Devon, ever to rival Ken's grasp, attention to detail and dedication to promoting the role and values of our rural post offices. Ken was a real community member, deeply involved in the building of West Hill Village Hall, an avid bridge player, I don't know what Vidge is, bridge player, and chair of Newton Poppleford Bridge Club. The Potter family started the local shop in West Hill, where Ken ran with his brother. I understand some still refer to the shop as Potter's Shop. He was also a soldier, choir member, and of course postmaster. He will be greatly missed. Ken leaves his wife, Jill. Secondly, former councillor Paul Diviani, and former leader of the council, as you know. I knew Paul well, served on his cabinet throughout his leadership, and he was very much more than front of house for the council and a great ambassador for East Devon District Council through his work at national level with the Local Government Association At county level, as a long-serving county councillor, and district level, particularly focusing on his beloved Blackdown Hills area of outstanding natural beauty. I was fortunate to inherit the relationship he established with the late Pete Edwards, who was then leader of Exeter City Council. The two of them were instrumental in securing tens of millions of pounds of investment into East Devon, the benefits of which are still seen today with the work our current council is able to do in relation in and around Cranbrook. Paul was an East Devon District Councillor for a full 20 years, from 1999 to 2019. Leader of the council from 2011 to 2018, and held the position of chair of the council and portfolio holder for the economy, regeneration and strategic development during his tenure. In December 2019, he was made an honorary alderman. Our sympathies are with John and their families. If we could, members, if we could stand for a minute of silent reflection in the memory of those two colleagues, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't ask the leader. Leader, have you any statements you want to make? Or any?
I don't this evening, Chair. Thank you.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 7, confidential or exempt items. No items have been recommended by officers to be dealt with as confidential or exempt. Agenda item 8. Well, we come to the favourite section of former Councillor Miller. And I must admit, a great disappointment that far from the 10, 20 questions that he could be relied upon to produce for every previous council meeting, this evening we have absolutely none. I'm sorry, colleagues, but that's a pretty pathetic show. It really is. You know. Anyway, we wish Councillor Miller all the best in all that his future life brings, and thank him for his questions. Sincerely, folks. Agenda item, agenda item 9, the headline act of this evening. We'll now hear the report of the Council's Director for Finance, Simon Davey. Simon will cover precept details for the parish and town councils, Devon County Council, Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Commissioners, Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service, so that we're able to approve the calculations that form the basis of the formal setting of council tax for the district. As you can see, and I think Simon will of course point out that we get a very small amount of what we actually collect on behalf of everybody else. After hearing Simon's report, we need to take a recorded vote on this item, which is customary and required by the Constitution for the annual budget, so that there's a record of how members have voted in budget setting in line with current legislation. Simon, over to you.
Thank you. I won't add much to the report. This is the final stage in setting next year's budget. Thank you for all those who took part in the various committees and meetings in debating and considering the draft budget, along with the associated service plans. The draft budget has been supported unchanged through that process and now comes to Council for final approval. As highlighted, the report is also the council tax resolution, so it includes the precept of all the major preceptors, the county, police, fire and town and parish councils, so they're set out in that resolution in terms of the calculation. Just to confirm, at the point of writing the report, county was still to meet and the fire, they have now confirmed, so the figures that were published in the report are their precepts. So nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. Do any members want to make any comment before we move through to the vote? Councillor Skinner. Philip.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on the budget proposals from a Conservative viewpoint. Firstly, I want to say how much we appreciate the amount of hard and detailed work that has been done by our officers in achieving a balanced budget under the current economic climate. A council is measured by the way in which it delivers frontline services. We are all proud and grateful to our street scene team for the amazing work they have done and still do in recycling, grounds maintenance, and all of those other jobs which are frequently neither seen nor heard. However, there are two of those frontline services in the budget that we as Conservatives are having difficulty in supporting. The first is that of car parking charges. I will admit that our previous administrations could and should have done more over the last 10 years to raise parking charges. The new regime is, in our opinion, too stringent and could have been handled in a more sympathetic manner while still raising revenue for the council. The second frontline service we have grave concerns over is that of public toilets. Whilst this service is not mandatory, it is of huge importance to a local economy which is heavily reliant on tourism, as well as those residents of whom a high proportion are elderly. This is, in our opinion, is vitally important facility, and we cannot support the sweeping closures that have reduced public toilets from 27 to 14 across the whole of the district. So while we congratulate our finance officers in achieving a balanced budget, there will be a number of our members who may very well abstain from supporting the budget for the reasons I have given. Chair, thank you for giving me the time to speak on behalf of my group.
Thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. I assume you're not proposing a formal amendment that would actually mean we start with an unbalanced budget, are you? So I assume...
I don't think I am, no.
So your comments, you're happy that your comments are noted, yes?
Absolutely.
Fine. I'm sure we can confirm that that will be done. Councillor Rowlands. Jack.
Thank you, Chair. I was planning to speak anyway as the finance portfolio holder, and can I start by thanking Simon Davey and the finance team for the superb work they've done in producing a balanced budget under probably the most difficult situation that's faced this council, certainly during my time of being a member. It goes without saying that I've mentioned this before, that over the last decade, in real terms, East Devon District Council has lost over £50 million in support from central government. So, bearing in mind the current inflationary pressures and the fact that we're not increasing any charges in this coming financial year, I welcome the fact that we've produced a balanced budget which is being increased by 3.19%, £5 per year, which for the average Band D ratepayer, they'll still be paying just over £3 per month for the services that are provided. And we haven't cut any services whatsoever at the moment. I won't mention public toilets because I'm going to hand over to Councillor Young in a minute with your forbearance, Chair, as it falls within his portfolio. But if I would mention about the car park charges and remind members once again that car park charges were not increased in this district for over 10 years. And bearing in mind as well that during that period, the VAT actually increased from 17.5% to 20%. So the net income to this council actually fell during that period. And if you take into account inflation over that period of time as well, we were faced with a really difficult situation where we haven't increased the charges for all car parks across the district, but only those ones which are the highest demands, where we're also relying obviously on tourists coming in. Now, we're not increasing them again from April, but if you look to see what's happening in a lot of the adjoining authorities, they are increasing their charges to be very much in line with what we already have in East Devon District Council. So I make no apology for what we had to do for protecting frontline services. So again, I applaud Simon Davey and his finance team for what they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Can I actually move as well the recommendation on the agenda paper?
Thank you very much. That's noted. I assume Councillor Young is now about to speak. I don't know what time City kick off tonight.
8 o'clock. I'm going
8 o'clock. Okay, fine. Over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Conservatives are concerned about the toilets, because it was actually a proposal that I inherited from the last administration. However, we adapted it and improved it, put a lot of funding behind it, and we've also received funding as well, which I'll go into in a short while. But the whole idea is to have better modern toilets for a modern town, and especially the holiday locations. A lot of the toilets, as you know, are past their sell-by date, and we have got to do something about them. A lot of them are not suitable for disabled, and the funding that we've received from central government is to adapt for these toilets so they can be used for adult changing for disabled people, which is something that is very important, because I have got a relation who is disabled in that way. So I think our proposal, which we put forward a few years ago, and we're progressing with it, is a really good proposal. It's the best way of we're saving some money, but we're also spending a lot of money to provide the best toilets that we can possibly provide. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. I don't have any more speakers indicating, so could I really second one? It doesn't need seconding, but Councillor Rowland's proposal that we approve the formal council tax resolution as detailed at Appendix A. Now, this, as I said, had to be done through a recorded vote, so if I can pass across to you, Sue. And if you could, when your name's called out again in the normal fashion, either indicate for, against, or any abstain, please. Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen. Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Arnold. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bickley. Councillor Bonetta.
4.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Burb. Councillor Cahill.
Abstain.
Councillor Chapman. Councillor Davey. Councillor Desarum. Councillor Dent.
Abstain.
Councillor Faithful.
4.
Councillor Gazzard. Councillor Hall.
Abstain.
Councillor Hartnell. Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Hayward. Councillor Hookway. Councillor Howe.
4.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Ingham. Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Johns? Councillor Young? Councillor Lawrence? Councillor Ledger?
4.
Councillor Manley? Councillor Moulding? Councillor Parr? Councillor Rickson? Councillor Rowland?
4.
Councillor Rylands?
4.
Councillor Skinner? Councillor Taylor?
4.
Councillor Thomas?
4.
Councillor Wibley? 4. Councillor Woodward?
4.
Councillor Ragg?
4.
Councillor Chris Wright? 4. Councillor Tom Wright? Okay, right. Thank you, Chair. Bear with me a moment.
Well, I don't think we need to actually count, so I feel quite safe to say, following the vote, I can confirm the formal council tax resolution at Appendix A is agreed, and we can move on to agenda item 10. Oh, I'm sorry. As Councillor Rylands leaves the room. Okay. Right, agenda item 10, reports from Cabinet and Council's committees and questions on those reports. So could I receive the minutes of the following committees and invite members to vote in favour or against agreeing those minutes? Recommendations are summarised on page 33 to 35 of your hymn sheets. And Councillor Skinner, sorry, could I, what's this in relation to, please?
What the numbers were between those people who actually voted for it and those people who abstained. And I understand there were no any dissenters, but I'd like to know numbers, please.
Okay, you know, perfectly happy to that. When they're ready to come forward, I'll ask Sue to do it. But I wanted to move on with the time.
Okay.
You got it now?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, we'll add that now then. Sue,
Okay.
just to go back briefly to the budget motion.
28 for and 16 abstentions.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Councillor Skinner's noted that. Back to agenda item 10. Firstly, Leader, Cabinet on the 4th of Jan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I merely would like to present the minutes as you've just described from the 4th of January for Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any call minutes on anything. It's easy as it stands. So could I ask members please to vote in favour or against agreeing the minutes? All those in favour, please. All those against? The flavour of the night. Any abstentions? No abstentions there. I can confirm that those minutes are agreed as a true record. Leader, again, 1st of February, Cabinet, please.
Thank you, Chair. You steal my lines because that's all I've got to say, really, is the minutes of the 1st of February Cabinet. I'd like to present them to Council.
Again, no call minutes. All those in favour, please. Any against? Or abstentions? No. Again, I can confirm that the minutes are agreed as a true record. We better get the Vice Chair back in quick because she's on parade now. Can you do this on the run, Councillor Rylands? So, you know, Councillor Rylands, could you... A kerfuffle. It must be the crowds fighting to get in. Bar's open, is it? Oh, right, fair enough.
I beg your pardon. What did I come back to?
Well, as Councillor Rylands returns from a quick snifter, would you like to
That was
present,
snifter.
please?
Snifter, okay.
Would you like to please present the minutes of the joint budget and meeting of scrutiny and overview?
Oh, goodness.
That's you, yes.
That is me. Where are we? Yes, okay. So, yes. Sorry, I'd like to present the minutes of the Joint Budget and Scrutiny meeting of the 11th of January 2023, please.
Thank you very much. You can't get the staff, can you?
Just can't.
All those in favour, please. Any against? Any abstentions? No? Okay, I'm pleased to confirm that those minutes are agreed as a true record. Lost my track now. Councillor Johns, Vicky, minutes of joint budget meeting of scrutiny and overview on the 12th of January. Over to you, please. Thank you very much, Vicky. Can I invite members to vote in favour or against screening those minutes? All those in favour, please. Any against or abstentions? Lovely, thank you very much. I can confirm that the minutes of that meeting are also agreed as a true record. Next, I've got Councillor Mike Allen or Councillor Jamie Kemp. I don't know who is doing these. The minutes of scrutiny on the 2nd of Feb. He's another snifter, is he?
Give this council a bad reputation, Chair. Okay, so Councillor Kemp wasn't at that meeting.
And Councillor Kemp wasn't at that meeting. Well, I suppose the sensible thing to do then is move those minute meetings from the chair. All those in favour, please. Any against? Any abstentions? No, I can now confirm that those minutes are agreed as a true record. Congratulations, Mike. Your minutes were agreed as a true record. So there we go. Next, you're very welcome. No extra charge. Councillor Chamberlain, minutes of Housing Review Board, please.
She's absent.
We're not doing well here tonight. Who's the Vice Chair of the Housing Revenue? Councillor Taylor? It's a resident. Crack it. Well, we move those from the chair as well then. Can I invite members, please, to vote in favour of the minutes or against the minutes of the Housing Review Board held on the 18th of January 2023? All those in favour, thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Again, I can confirm those minutes are agreed as a true record. Councillor Ragg, Planning Committee, November, December and January, please.
Yeah, minutes of the housing, of the Planning Committee meetings as listed, I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. No, I can confirm that those minutes are agreed as a true record. Councillor Wibley, minutes of licensing and enforcement, 7th of December, please. Thank you very much. Could I ask members please to vote in favour or against recognising those minutes as a true record? All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Can confirm those minutes are agreed as a true record. Next, it's Councillor Thomas. I can do these myself, all right. Minutes of the Personnel Committee meeting on the 6th of February 2023, and also minutes of the Interviewing Chief Officers Subcommittee, which I chaired on the 7th of February 2023. Since the second subcommittee is a subcommittee of Personnel Committee, try saying that when you've had a few snifters, I'll take these items together. But before I do, I'd just like to confirm that we're recommending to you the appointment of Melanie Wellman, who's currently Assistant Director, Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer at Sedgemoor District Council, to be our next Director of Legal, or whatever. So there we go. All those in favour, please. Any against? I can confirm that those excellent minutes are adopted as a true and accurate record. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, changes to governance arrangement. I'm advised I don't actually need to consult an officer on this, merely to inform that this item is to ask members to confirm the appointment of Councillor Bruce de Sarum as a member of the Scrutiny Committee and as chair of the committee following the recent resignation of Councillor Mike Allen as chair and his standing down as a member of committee. Whilst there wouldn't normally be changes in committees, as you'll be aware at this stage in a council, Councillor Allen has to step down as well to actually maintain political balance within the Scrutiny Committee. So effectively, there's one Conservative replacing another. So can I please invite members to raise their hands if there's any comments on that, or if not, all those please in favour. Any against? Thank you. I can confirm that the appointment is confirmed. On to agenda item 12. To be proposed by Councillor Bonetta. Over to you, Jake.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I want to start with a short story about two siblings in East Devon. These two siblings have spent the best part of 18 years growing up together. They share many beliefs and values. They copy each other's music tastes. They've even had the same weekend jobs in the same workplaces. They didn't always get on. As with any sibling rivalry, the oldest one of the two often found the younger one a bit of an annoyance. The younger one didn't always like the older one too. Nevertheless, they developed over the years to be very close to one another. One day, the older sibling walked into the younger sibling's bedroom to have one of their regular catch-ups. They were painting their nails in blue and pink, two of the colours on the transgender flag. Painted nails were by no means an uncommon feat across the gender spectrum by this point in time. However, something in the older sibling's mind knew that this was significant. Over the course of a few months, male pronouns turned to gender-neutral expressions of they and them. Soon enough, discussions were had between them about the younger sibling's wish to permanently change their name and gender. Violet would be her new name, and she would be the older sibling's sister from then on. The older sibling took a bit of time to get the name right and the new pronouns, not least because they had known this person under a different name for 18 years. However, they had no problem with it. They worked together to help others in their family understand through some quite tough arguments and some more engaged and fruitful discussions. The older sibling knew that this is how she wanted to live, and they were there to support her no matter what. In this story, I'm the older sibling, and Violet is sat just over there. Chair, even though that story I shared was very clearly just a snapshot of my life, it does have some meaning behind it. Firstly, whether anyone in this room likes it or not, transgender and non-binary people do exist. They have done for millennia, presenting in different ways across different societies. Secondly, because they exist, we need to treat them as if they do. No more ignoring the problem and moving on, and certainly no more lack of recognition through policy. Enough is enough, and times move on. When I talk about being transgender, I'm talking about the reassignment away from the sex assigned to you at birth. It is not a simple choice, nor a move made for attention. Why would people choose to live a life in which family issues, employability problems, and serious violence against the person are more likely? Pronouns form a part of this. These are the gendered prefixes by which you would like to be referenced. For example, as I identify as a male by birth and by choice, I use he and him pronouns. My sister identifies as a female, and therefore she's a her. This is exactly the same for everyone in the room, and is as simple as can be. Everyone in here uses pronouns on a daily basis. Now just think, doesn't it feel weird and a bit rude when you are misgendered? If you were a guy and I referred to you as she in a serious manner, wouldn't you find that, at the very least, a bit odd? This is a right that everyone enjoys. Transgender and non-binary people are able to dress how they like, love how they like, live how they like, just as everyone else in this room is able to. This is not a privilege. If you got told you couldn't dress how you wanted, love like you wanted, live how you wanted, that would be seen as harmful against you. Chair, this motion is not just a symptom of a fashionable, modern thing to do, nor is it a woke phase for any culture war agenda. This is a recognition that the Council can make to ensure that we treat transgender and non-binary people as exactly that, people. We have limited scope with what we can do as a district council. We don't control health policy, nor are we the arbiters of national equality policy. However, what we can do is work to current legislation, improve our own in-house services, and protect and celebrate any officers or members who go through any transitions. This motion aims to do precisely that. Through this motion, we can do the following: provide visibility by flying the transgender flag, agree to demonstrate our serious attitude towards equality through the Stonewall Diversity Champion programme, which I'll get onto later, Update our policies and training to ensure we use current equalities legislation to its fullest extent, and improve our homelessness policies to try and support young people facing homelessness on an LGBT basis. Chair, by flying the transgender flag on our flagpoles, we provide visibility to trans and non-binary communities across East Devon, helping to try and destigmatise the issue for all. We are only asking for 2 days a year. 2 days of visibility, which I think is the very least we should be offering this persecuted community. And I mean persecuted. Just look at the tragedy of Brianna Gay's murder just 2 weeks ago. I know Councillor Wibley will be discussing this in detail in a second, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to duplicate here. By agreeing in principle to sign up to Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme, we are demonstrating to prospective and current employees that we are serious on all issues surrounding equality and diversity. This programme provides access to workshops, expert guidance, focused feedback on our progress, and membership to their Workplace Equalities Index for employers. We are also demonstrating fiscal responsibility and restraint, believe it or not, allowing our HR team the breathing room to prepare a detailed report for Personnel Committee to come back later. You'll note in this, I'm not asking you to back it right now. I'm asking you to just sign off a report to Personnel Committee. That's it. By updating our policies and training to be inclusive of transgender and non-binary terminology and language, we are increasing the ability of our council as a workplace and service provider to ensure a safe space for those going through any transition. We are also demonstrating our wish to further educate ourselves on the matter, ensuring we are not stepping on the toes or getting in the way of anyone that needs our help. This will also ensure that our workforce are protected, with specialised policies supporting any staff going through gender reassignment and transitions, and making sure the correct pronouns are used throughout the organisation. This would be as simple as adding wording to ensure people are addressed with the correct pronouns, a move I'm sure we are all capable of taking to adapt with the time. By improving our homelessness policies, we are showing an active aim to reduce LGBT-specific homelessness across the district. Not only are young people more likely to be homeless citing LGBT+ related reasons, but specifically transgender people commonly find themselves the victim of housing insecurity and serious violence, leading to substance use, physical and sexual victimisation, and difficulty in securing employment. And if you don't believe me, you're more than welcome to read this report, which talks about it. Finally, by standing by equalities legislation, we are reaffirming our support for the protections in law supporting gender reassignment. The Equality Act 2010 specifically states that you must not be discriminated against because your gender identity is different from the sex assigned to you at birth. This motion supports this specifically by ensuring our policies are in line with this, making sure that we have the ability to treat all people as they would like to be treated. Chair, this motion is not a wholesale attempt to override national policy. In fact, it works within it and ensures we use it to the best of its ability. This council, nor any part of the state, at least in my opinion, has no right to get involved with how a person chooses to generally live their life. We must respect people's personal lives, not meddle, and we must act to ensure the best possible working conditions and service delivery for all people. Please don't tell these two siblings over here that one must be treated differently by this council than the other. Instead, let these two siblings walk out of here knowing that policies and safeguards will be put in place to protect both of them equally. That's all I'm asking you to consider doing this evening. Chair, I so propose the motion to council, and if I may, I'd like to reserve my right to speak at the end of the debate as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonetti. You do have the right to sum up before the vote's actually put, and I'll take another contribution, hopefully with any new material that comes forward at that point. But in the interim, Councillor Wibley, Joe, you're down to second the motion. Would you like to speak now, please?
I would indeed, Chair. Thank you. Okay, so last week, I'd already written most of what I was going to say tonight, but at the weekend, I attended the vigil on the Cathedral Green in Exeter for Brianna J, partly because I wanted to, and partly to support any members of my school's LGBTQ community who turned up. So what I'm going to say tonight, in light of that, has changed somewhat from my initial musings. Anything other than total acceptance, welcoming and love for our trans community is shameful and abhorrent, that suggests that we stratify people into the best and worst, ideal or imperfect, worthy or worthless, good or bad. And whether that lack of acceptance is down to ignorance, fear or prejudice, I cannot and will not stand by and accept it. Because these people are exactly that. They are people. They're people like Brianna J, people like the kids I work with. They're people who live in your communities. At their heart, they are just people like you and I. The trans community are my sisters and my brothers and everything else that's in between. And to see their pain and fear and anguish as they mourned the loss of a 16-year-old girl murdered through nothing more than hate and ignorance by her contemporaries, it is alleged, was devastating. This year alone, there have been 8 recorded violent attacks on the trans community and counting. I saw, as I stood on the Cathedral Green, such grief, such an outpouring of beautifully well-reasoned and touchingly expressed sentiments from a group of people who want nothing more from life than to be accepted. To give an example of a small thing, which is lazy journalism, but incredibly damaging, the Daily Mail and other equally wonderful publications initially refused to call Brianna by her chosen name and described her as a boy when she was a girl. Even in her tragic death, she fell victim to unwarranted disrespect. As Councillor Bonetta touched on, gender dysphoria is the innate sense that your gender is different to the one from which you were biologically assigned, but it's not a new phenomenon. I don't profess to understand it because I haven't lived it, but I do see on a daily basis that it's real. I work with several children living as a gender different to that of their birth, and the question that I ask myself over and over again and put to those who show hate and disrespect is, why would these people choose this life? How can something even some of us here may label as a phase be so, when to take this path is to choose a life of potentially isolation and fear? And let me stress, you don't need to understand anything about the trans community to find favour with this motion. It addresses the matter of education, because this community exists and it will not go away. This motion will educate us as members, and we can understand and offer support to these residents as we would to anybody else. A lot of the hysteria surrounding the trans community of late is fueled by sections of the community worried about things as what it is to be a woman, fear about toilet arrangements, and think about the children style mania. And it reminds me of the way that society tore into the gay community during the AIDS crisis in the late 80s, vilifying a whole swathe of the populace because of something out of their control. We can't let this media-fueled storm prevent us as a council from being champions of equality and showing the civility and respect that coincidentally the next motion proposes, but towards every single member of our communities. The motion does not address the wider fears of the trans community. It'll not get them access to the healthcare they deserve. It will not end the attacks on them, on teenagers or children who dare to speak up about who they are and what they feel. It cannot help the boy in my school who the system continually labels a girl, who communicates it with me through writing down just regularly how they feel and says, I am not a girl and I'm destined to rot or be killed just for what I am. That is how a child thinks because of how society treats them. No one motion can do any of that. It is symbolic though. What it can do is it can show that we understand. As members, we have a responsibility to champion everyone in our communities, not to chide, not to criticise or isolate or ridicule, and definitely not to preach. This isn't an argument about pronouns or frivolous statements about how people identify. Those are chats for another time. But we have an opportunity this evening to stand up for and bring hope to what is at present a shattered community of what is at the end of the day just people like you and I. I ask that the council does not waste this opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Joe. I've got 5 supporters for the motion here. I normally would take the supporters at this point. Do any of Paul Jarvis, Councillor Jarvis, do you wish to speak? Thank you very much. Councillor Hawkins. Thank you very much. Councillor Arnott. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, and it's very hard to follow two such sincere and moving speeches. What Jake said and what Joe said is true. This is not new. I mean, I've filmed in India where gender dysphoria has been known about for absolutely millennia and is part of Hindu culture, and they face challenges. And those of us who are old enough to know this, and many won't, the very greatest travel writer ever to live in the United Kingdom was born as James Morris and then trans to Jan Morris in, I think, their early 40s, and was a remarkable advocate at that time for the challenges that were faced. And on a personal level, I've been playing for the same increasingly overweight football team for 40 years, and one of our players, who we knew for a long time as Martin, having married and had 3 children and still struggled, and in his mid-50s became Martine and is now she, and a distinguished lawyer. And I saw and know of the incredible struggle that was. Ultimately, everyone knows this is a contentious issue, and everyone knows that elements on social media, the press, and a small number of politicians use it as clickbait, red meat, and that is shameful. Above all else, we are a council of elected members with an opportunity to show kindness and consideration for a group of citizens on a challenging journey. Now, I perfectly understand that public opinion on this is in the balance and will be for some time. But while that becomes settled over the years, the people at the heart of the issue must be shown tolerance and respect. A council has the ability to signal its support for that position, and if we vote this through, East Devon District Council can be proud that it will have done precisely that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Arnott. Councillor Davey, Ollie, do you wish to speak now? No. Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Jackson. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard from some speakers today who've been affected by the levels of discrimination that we shouldn't see in a society, any society. Unfortunately, it exists. It shouldn't, but it does. And what this motion seeks to do is set down a marker, a clear message, that as a council, it's not our position to sit in judgment of other people, how they choose to live their lives, especially when those decisions, sometimes not decisions, don't hurt anyone. In fact, the people who are most affected here are choosing a route which means that, if anything, they will seek harm, they will have harm against them. As a council, we need to lay down the marker and say that this is a place where someone can live, come for support, and work for, where they'll be recognised and acknowledged for what they are, and where it is a safe space. That's it. Nothing more. It doesn't need to be contentious. We're not here to judge. We're just here to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. On to general speakers. I've got Councillor Dent. Alan.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for allowing me to speak on this motion. Whilst I support and understand the intentions and particularly the sincerity of the proposer and supporters, I have some concerns which I believe need to be addressed. Primarily, this motion, if approved, is a new and detailed policy with some 7 bullet-pointed actions which each need full consideration. This motion has not been through any committee stage and is presented at short notice for the Council to review and adopt. As elected councillors, we have all signed up to the Nolan Principles of Public Life: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. These are not rules, they are principles. Following this motion is the one on civility and respect, initiated by the Association of Local Councils, and has already been supported by at least 5 town parish councils in East Devon. This is something which is fundamental to all of us. I only hope that all of you with whom I've had dealings, both members and officers, feel I have treated you with both dignity and respect, even when we might have strongly differing opinions. For me, this covers all aspects of how we treat other people from every walk of life, gender, colour, or religion. So if we support the respect and dignity motion, and I sincerely hope we do, I believe this embraces all that is contained in the transgender visibility motion. As a councillor and an individual, I firmly believe we should treat everyone with respect, dignity, and tolerance. We work through and with the Nolan Principles and are trusted by our constituents accordingly. Principles, not rules. If I were permitted to suggest an amendment, it would simply be this transgender visibility motion is deferred until it has been fully considered by the appropriate committee and a detailed summary and report is submitted to and approved by Cabinet. Thank you, Chair and fellow councillors.
So was that a formal proposal of an amendment, Councillor Dent?
Yes, Chair, certainly.
Thank you very much. Could we then have a is there a seconder for that amendment? I got Councillor Cahill at the back.
Thank you, Chair.
So if you want to speak to the amendment now, please, because what we're dealing with is the amendment, not the substantive motion. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on the amendment. As a town councillor, as well as a district councillor for Brixton Ward in Exmouth, at a recent town council meeting on the 14th of November 2022, there was a resolution to sign up to the Civility and Respect Pledge. And the town councillor provided some background information to the proposed pledge and explained that this was a new national initiative which provides a mechanism for a council to demonstrate that it is committed to standing up to poor behaviour across its sector and to demonstrating positive changes which support civil and respectful conduct. The councillor then proposed acceptance of the resolution, and this was seconded by another town councillor, stroke district councillor, and agreed by the majority of councillors present when put to the vote. I would also like to talk about East Devon District Council Equality Policy and Objectives 2021 to 2025. And I would like to read out a few lines from that particular policy because I feel it's important. The Equality Act 2010 replaced all existing equality legislation so that there is now just one act. Section 149 of the Equality Act requires all public sector organisations to meet general and specific public sector duties. The Equality Act 2010 protects people from discrimination on the basis of the following 9 protected characteristics: age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex and sexual orientation. The Act contains an integrated public sector equality duty, which requires all public bodies and private bodies that deliver a public function to consider the needs of protected groups when designing and delivering services. Under the Act, the Council must have due regard to the need to eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and other conduct prohibited by the Act. Advance equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not, and foster good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. Having due regard for advancing equality involves removing or minimising disadvantages suffered by people due to protected characteristics. taking steps to meet the needs of people from protected groups where these are different from the needs of other people, encouraging people from protected groups to participate in public life or in other activities where their participation...
My apologies for interrupting you, Councillor Cahill, but I just want to remind you that we're dealing with an amendment to the motion as it stands.
I know,
rather than
I'm coming to that.
If you could, thank you very much.
But I thought it's important to read these few points out. Where their participation is disproportionately low, tackling prejudice and promoting understanding between different communities. To sum up, East Devon District Council has a policy in place until 2025, and town and parish councils in East Devon have signed up to the Civility and Respect Pledge, which is a national initiative. I would like to second the amendment proposed by Councillor Dent of the Budley Parish, that this transgender visibility motion is deferred until it has been fully considered by the appropriate committee and a detailed summary and report is submitted to and approved by Cabinet. Thank you, Chair and fellow councillors.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gale. You helped me in one respect, because I was going to ask the proposer, we've got the amendment, I have it here, is deferred until fully considered by appropriate committee. Firstly, I'd appreciate some guidance as to what you think is the appropriate committee. And secondly, a report brought to Cabinet, which I've got here. Whether either you or somebody can give me advice as to what the appropriate committee might be.
My suggestion would be the Personnel Committee, but I would leave that to the leader to decide.
Leader, do you have a view on that?
Gloriously queued up here. I don't think it's anything to do with me where it goes. But can I speak to the amendment, Chair?
I'd rather answer this question first, but then you can speak to the amendment, yes.
Well, I mean, I'm quite happy that the Personnel Committee would accept that as being a report coming to Personnel Committee. I do think it's probably the appropriate committee. The other alternative would, of course, be something like Overview, but Personnel Committee has a more human focus, and as such is probably the appropriate committee for something to come to, in the event members decide that actually this amendment should be adopted. So anyway, we thank you very much for seconding that. All I remind colleagues is that what we're talking about, please, can we keep these contributions to the amendment brief, so we can then respond to the main motion in hand in whatever form that takes. Councillor Arnott. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. I just urge members, please, to read pages 3 and 4 of the agenda, the motion that's actually been put forward by Councillors Bonetta and Whibley. In essence, in under 20 seconds, I hope, it's fly a flag, it's sign up to a Stonewall diversity programme, it's ensure that the equalities and safeguarding policies that Councillors Dent and Cahill have referred to are enhanced in some way. So just because they sit there at the moment doesn't mean that this council can't go, well, let's see if we can soup those up to meet these circumstances. It's about training. It's about homelessness policies. It's about stating publicly trans rights are human rights, which is the essence of what we're talking about tonight. And it's about exploring all other relevant council policy. But the thing about that is, which I don't quite understand what's being amended, is that is exactly what would happen as a consequence of this vote. It would naturally be picked up by our officers for that work to be further explored. But what tonight is about is a well-informed support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howe, just briefly, before I take the next speaker, could I confirm whether or not you're looking to speak to the amendment?
I don't mind speaking to either.
Well, it's the amendment specifically, as you're aware, and if you could make it brief, please.
We'll try.
I think the proposal's quite clear.
It is, and actually I agree with Councillor Arnott. I do believe some of my colleagues haven't really read the actual motion to understand it. And I will not be supporting the amendment. I will be supporting the motion as it stands on the paper today. I mean, I've got to express my sympathy, first off, and also the language that maybe adults of my age possibly troublesome. I'm a shopkeeper by trade, and I know a number of times we have people whose gender I cannot identify with. And often addressing them in my own business, I struggle to work out how I'm going to address them. So maybe this will help me get through that problem. But it's not always intentional. And this is where I think this motion comes to bring its forefront, is to just shout about it a bit more. Make it more open, make it more honest. And when I sit here and think a number of weeks ago, I had a very enjoyable pint in a pub in Exmouth with 3 people that I thoroughly enjoyed the company with that night. And we had various discussions about various things. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable evening, not totally expected, but at the same time, we sat and we talked through a number of issues. And it's that sort of interaction we need with everybody. And it should be open, above board, and it should be straightforward. So I will not be supporting this amendment, but I will absolutely support the motion as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Any more brief comments to the amendment before we go to a vote on it, please? Councillor Bonetta.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will make it brief, and before I start, I would like to commend Councillor Howe for his words there. I fully commend what he's just said. I want to just speak on a couple of points that have been raised very briefly. To Councillor Dent, obviously you were speaking about the time frame we were given with this motion to give to you. If I'm correct, I'm sure I will be corrected by the officers. This was presented within the time frames presented by the East Devon District Council Constitution, as were your 2 motions put forward by the Conservative group. And if I may, agenda item 14, recompiling the local plan. First and foremost, I didn't see that motion before the agenda papers came out, so I wasn't given, you could say, adequate time. But surely that is a major policy platform, and I could vote against that on exactly the same basis. Because arguably, recompiling the local plan, 3,000-page document, little bit more serious than some HR policies. But anyway, I digress. Councillor Cagle, you obviously referred to the civility and respect pledge, and I do want to take heed of that because we also had that at Honiton Town Council a couple of weeks back, and I also voted to support it. And that is very important. Not part of the substantive motion in front of us, but I still do heed to that. The idea that we're trying to work to push something through has been mitigated in this motion very strongly, as Councillor Arnott has suggested. The one major item which may have financial implications, may have major implications for the Council, is agree in principle to sign up to Stonewall's Diversity Champions Programme for employers and delegate authority to the Human Resources Manager to bring a report to Personnel Committee on the implications of this. That's the major bit of work. The rest of it, we can just agree and get the officers to work on it. And also, if you're interested, if we've got a budgetary responsibility for it, buying a couple of flags, that's not going to be much more than a couple of bob. I'm sure we can bring that out. Obviously, we'll have to go through offices. I'll pay for it if you need to. But I digress. I won't be backing the amendment, and I urge everyone to vote against the amendment as put.
Thank you very much. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I can confirm to all members that all motions on the papers tonight were received in the appropriate timescale and considered in such. So that's a complete red herring in any respect. Councillor Wright, I've got, please, to the amendment. Tom.
Well, again, I'm a little bit conflicted on whether it's to the amendment or to the
It has to be to the amendment at this point,
What
please.
I would like to say is commend the manner in which the case was put by Jake and by Joe, if I can refer to them in that informal fashion. But the most important thing that I see in the motion, which perhaps goes against the amendment, is I think it's the 4th bullet point. I know my generation, and I think I'm amongst the very top of the demographic with regard to age. I think training is the most important thing. I know my kids and my grandchildren are much more aware of the issues and the problems people face. And I do think that whether the amendment or the motion is passed, I think that requirement or that wish to train, to educate, to teach us how other people think and feel that we might not have any idea about. I think that is the most important thing, and that is the most important thing to solving most of society's problems. Thank you, Chairman. And if I've digressed over both ages. It's inexperience. I'm not used to debating, as you know.
Well, I know you've not been doing it for long, Tom. Yes, I think we've got anybody else, please, wants to speak specifically on the amendment, and briefly, please. Who do I get next? Councillor Allen. Mike, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. As far as I'm concerned, racism, sexism, any kind of abuse is wrong because it would demean the value and worth of a human being. Why? Because every single human being is made in the image of God and as a result has infinite worth. Now we have the Equality Act and that's already been commented on. Psychologically, it's very easy to label people into groups that you can either like, hate, or ignore. But each of us is an individual with all the potential that God has given us, and I hope that all of us here will support this motion to reject prejudice. The only block for me is this Stonewall Diversity Champions programme, because I don't know what that is about, and I've heard too many things that worry me, but also that a number of organisations are leaving the scheme because it's not considered good value. So I absolutely accept the fact that people should be able to self-identify with the agenda that they believe in. That is absolutely a human right, and therefore, since Joe Fellows is a very competent HR manager and already has an ability to look at Stonewall's programme in the context of free advice from the Local Government Association and the Chartered Institute of Development, which is free, I think it's very important that this whole council considers how we can unify to make sure that we actually live what we want to in respect of diversity and civil appreciation of people of all genders, all types, all races, all religions. And that's really what we want to do. We want to behave like that, and that may require training. But I think Joe Fellows is well able to come back with a report that you can all agree on, and I really would urge unity on this rather than diversity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'd like to take one more speaker, please, if I could, on the amendment, then put it to the vote so we can move along. I've got Councillor Ian Hall at the back, please. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you ever so much, Councillor Bonetta, Councillor Wibley. Listening to the original motion and listening to the amendment coming through, there's no getting away from it, Chair. There is a huge amount of ignorance in this room, and therefore there's a huge amount of ignorance across all aspects of society. I think everyone here would actually join me, as is already been indicated. We do represent all in our society, and if not, we're in the wrong game, because through our individual and collective journeys, education and making sure that we are being aware of all aspects within our community is absolutely key to unlocking our potential. From what I hear on the amendment, it is that we request that there is more education, and as it's been said, with our HR officer, Joe Fellows, we will definitely have that. But I think the spirit of the motion and the amendment is exactly on the same train track, no doubt about it. So all I would say is, as it's been said, let's not be divisive, let's be inclusive on this. We are all on the same page here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. So what I'd like to do at this point is actually propose that the amendment be put, and I'll read the amendment to members now so it's absolutely clear what it is you're voting on.
It's that the motion is deferred until fully considered by Personnel Committee and a report brought to Cabinet. So the vote, please, is that if that is supported, that would then become...
Just to clarify, the wording of the motion itself, is that being erased and just replaced with that? Or will that be referenced in the motion, in the amendment as well? That's not clear at all.
As my understanding of it is in that it says that you've got to have something to be deferred for it to be deferred, and the deferred, for me, is the content of the motion. So that effectively it's an argument that postpones the putting of the motion and for further consideration. That's my reading of the amendment and its purpose.
Okay, so we're just putting an extra bullet point on the end.
Well, yeah, no, but it does
suggestion?
change. There are actions within the motion as presented that involve action now. Effectively, what the proposed amendment would do is negate that in terms of immediate effect and actually take the whole subject to the personnel for a report to Personnel Committee. So the upshot of it is whether you want to please all those in favour of supporting the amendment. Could you please show? Can we? We've got members of the public in the... Members of the public aren't allowed to vote, just for the avoidance of doubt. I know it's tempting, but we haven't got that liberal yet.
Can you stand up? Because we can't.
Well, could members please stand up? This is not for a target practice exercise. It's just so our officers can see quite clearly how many people are voting. Could you rate? So we're counting people standing. Okay. You got right. All those against that deferral, that amendment, could you please stand? For equalities, could we please stand as well? Well, no, it's defeated.
Sorry, the amendment is defeated.
I'll tell you what, you do have to keep a track on these monitoring officers. I could confirm that the amendment is defeated and the original proposal becomes the substantive motion. So if there are any further people, hopefully briefly, who want to speak on the motion itself, could you please indicate now? I've got Councillor Bruce Alistair here.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of what I want to say has been covered. What I would say is that, Violet, you should be very proud of your brother. I think he's done a sterling job bringing this forward. I do hold some reservations, particularly around the business of maybe celebrating 2 days, because I think humanity and its diversity should be celebrated every day. I don't need a special day to tell my wife how much I love her. And I do wonder whether that maybe detracts from the power of the message, but that's for perhaps another day. So really, that's all I need to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alistair. I've got Councillor de Sarum. Bruce.
Good evening, members. Thank you very much, Chair. I mentioned that I would consider myself an ordinary person, as our previous speaker indicated, and I strongly believe that hate crimes should be dealt with quickly and effectively, so that as a council, we take such crimes seriously, and so many parts of this motion will go, I feel, some way to give reassurance to those non-binary persons in our society, which is right, as well as fulfilling our legal obligations as a council under the Equality Act. Finally, members will be aware that I am of mixed race myself, Scottish and Sri Lankan, and in my own lifetime, I have experienced moments of hatred and racism. But members, I have always strived to take a positive outlook on life, and that's why I was so pleased to be elected as a councillor in 2016. And so I feel that individuals have rights, and this is why I feel very passionately about this motion. Thank you ever so much, Chair, and I'll pass on to the next person.
Thank you, Bruce. I've got two more speakers on the motion. Councillor Bickley. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to the two motion leaders here, and also thank you to our public speakers who spoke so clearly about everything. A little bit about me, I grew up with a family who are pretty right-wing and are quite bigoted, as much as I love them, and it's taken me quite a lot to undo some of that. My 16-year-old has really taught me volumes on this subject through friends of his and things he's learnt at school and online. A much more tolerant generation than mine, and I probably could speak for the ones above me as well. It's very difficult coming from a place of privilege in that, you know, I'm white, I'm not well off, but not badly off. There's a lot of people in here, male, you know, even that is on its own is such a privileged position, and we can't imagine the trials that people go through when they just want to be true to themselves. I'm a vegan and most people hate me, so I do understand it. On some level, I have a little bit of that, but obviously nothing like it. I think anything we can do to educate ourselves is a fantastic move. Getting this out there and talked about, it gives me joy in my heart to hear people's opinions. Fantastic. As a lapsed Catholic, I can also say, a question might come up, but it goes against the Bible and all those sorts of questions. But all I ever say to myself is, what would Jesus do? And you can bet that Jesus would be going over and giving Violet a hug right now, because that is what being a Christian would be about. It's being friendly, welcoming and loving to every member of our society. And so I hope that everyone votes for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denise. Councillor Lawrence. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I would love to applaud these two guys for their eloquent speeches and their passion, and also our two speakers from the public at the beginning. I mean, it takes a lot to stand up against what is convention, and these people do it really, really well. And the only thing that I would have some sort of regard against is this Stonewall thing, because I read up on all these things before I make a comment. I haven't spoken to Councillor Allen about it either, but there does seem to be a move afoot to move away from Stonewall. Whatever the reasons are, I don't know. But if as a council we are to, in order to safeguard everybody and make everybody all-inclusive under our control, if we are going to spend money doing it and we invest in the wrong type of representation, then I think that's something that Joe Fellows is going to have to take on board and deal with. But apart from that, I think it's been fabulous. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Richard. Councillor Parr. Helen.
Thank you. I can support absolutely everything in this motion, apart from the agree in principle to sign up to Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme for employers. I think we would be very well advised to ask our HR person to look into this. I read that the Police Scotland have withdrawn from the scheme. This is yesterday. In 2021, the BBC withdrew, the House of Commons Equalities and Human Rights Commission withdrew, and the House of Lords have withdrawn, and Ofcom have also left. I think we should look very carefully at this scheme before agreeing in principle to sign up to it. So if that bullet point can be amended to read that we delegate authority to the Human Resources Manager to bring a report to Personnel Committee on the implications of signing up to Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme for employers. If we can amend that bullet point, I can support absolutely everything. I would also say I don't see why we just fly the flag on one day. In Australia, it's flown the whole time. Why can't we fly it the whole time? I've nothing against anything else in this proposal apart from that one signing up. And if anyone will support that amendment, perhaps we could vote on that.
Thank you, Councillor Parr. That's a proposal of an amendment. But I need a second for the amendment, if there's going to be one, please.
Sorry, if you read the point, that's exactly what it says.
Yeah,
we agree in principle, and a report comes forward.
Well, that's not actually a point of order, but as you well know. So, but on the other hand,
sorry, point of order. Can I have a clarification on the actual
you're
proposal?
asking for clarification.
It seems very much like the proposal on the table.
Hang on a second. What the second point says quite clearly is it does start with agreeing principle to sign up to Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme for employers. So it does actually lead the content of the report. That's perfectly fair. It doesn't leave it as open and for the human resources manager to bring a more balanced report to Personnel Committee. It does tend to put a flavour on it. Now, I think that's really the point that, if I'm sorry I want to put words in anybody's mouth, I try not to, but I believe that's probably what Councillor Parr is highlighting. I'm still looking for a second to that amendment, please. Councillor Lawrence, Richard. Would it be fair to put this amendment straight away? Would any member object in the interests of time and the rest of the work we have this evening if I propose that this is put straight away without debate? Without further debate? Okay, right. The amendment as put is that the motion as presented, is there a form of words? Is it just that would somebody like to propose a form of words, or that Councillor Parr, please, in relation to the...
I did propose that we start at delegate authority to the Human Resources Manager to bring a report to Personnel Committee on the implications of agreeing in principle to sign up to Stonewall's Champions programme.
Okay, I get that. We have we got Councillor Lawrence was a second. That's pretty much what it says with the words moved around. So I'm not actually sure what a substantive amendment it is.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I mean to omit the agreeing in principle.
All right, so effectively you're talking about beginning a report on the Stonewall Diversity Champions programme be brought to by the Human Resources to Manager to Personnel Committee. I mean, without any, is that what you propose? Is that your proposal, your proposed amendment? Right, do we have a second for that? Councillor Lawrence? Okay, all those, I say I want to move straight to a vote on that amendment if I could. All those in favour of that amendment, could you please indicate? All those against, please. The amendment fails, and we're back to the substantive motion as presented. I have now a couple of speakers left still to speak on the substantive motion. Councillor Hayward, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very, very brief. The issue here is timing. Members have been spoken to, advised on the Equalities Act, which has been around, now for 13 years, but it evidently isn't working. In January this year, a major national newspaper of a particular ilk has published 115 articles on the trans community. 100 of those have been negative. 87% of their coverage is negative against the trans community. Since 2010, hate crimes against the transgender community have gone up by 900%. Whatever the will and the intention of the Equalities Act, as very beautifully and eloquently read out by my colleague, it's evidently not working because people are not abiding by it. So therefore this motion sets out very clearly, and I'm mystified by these pedantic changes in wording. It's agree in principle and ask the Personnel Human Resources Manager to bring a report to us. It's unequivocal. It's so clear. The matter of flags, it's messing around the edges. 30 years ago, no, I won't. That's a story I can tell Joe and Jake another time, because this has been said. This has been going on. This challenge to peoples who wish to change their identity, change the gender, has been going on for millennia. It's not new. So let's just crack on. The last few speakers that you kindly allow to speak, Chair, and let's just vote on this and do the right thing as a council. Thank you.
I have one more speaker to indicate, and then the Councillor Burnetta, please, to sum up. So, Councillor Johns, Vicky.
Yeah. So, as an elected councillor, I'm actually quite saddened that this motion has even had to be brought to council to be discussed in the first place, and the fact that it's been discussed over and over and over again. All people should be treated equally, regardless of their gender, religion, race, etc. Of course, it could be deferred to just keep kicking it down the road, but what's the point? Why should people continue to suffer while we discuss the same points over and over and over again? Education is key. I'm a Christian, and the whole point is to love thy neighbour, regardless. It doesn't matter what your personal thoughts are. You love people for who they are, not what you think they should be. There's been a lot of fuss made about this agree in principle to sign up to the Stonewall's Diversity Champion Programme. It says in principle, not to do it without thought or checking it out. And I personally trust our HR officers to do a thorough job. It says in principle. It doesn't say we're going to do it. It says we're going to look into whether or not it's something that is suitable for this council to do. So I think we should just get on with the motion and vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Councillor Bonetta, if you could briefly sum up, please.
Thank you very much. I promise you it will be brief. I don't think I can say much more on the motion. I think a lot of councillors have summed it up extremely well. And I want to pay tribute to a lot of councillors who've made some very, very good points. Councillor de Sarum, Councillor Bickley and Councillor Johns, obviously, who we've just heard from. If I may, I would like to clear up the point about Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme. I'll read the bit of the motion again. It says, agree in principle to sign up to the Stonewall's Diversity Champions programme for employers and delegate authority to the Human Resources Manager to bring a report to Personnel Committee on the implications of this. I think we've gone around in circles a bit there. That's what the motion says. I've gone through this with the CEO. We have had lengthy discussions about the wording of the motion. This is what we've agreed. This has gone through negotiations before, and this means that it does have that further stage. And the beauty of it is, if you don't like it, you can vote it down at Personnel Committee. That's the crux of it. If there are massive problems with it, which there may well be, that I'm not aware of, I can't find massive problems with it personally, but if there are, I'm sure our HR manager will let us know. This motion, as has been said by a lot of people, will provide that extra safety net and security, not only for our officers, but any future members we may have who decide to transition, and also the residents of our district who access our services. And therefore, on that basis, I commend the motion and so propose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonetta. So could I move straight to a vote, please? All those in favour of the motion as presented on the agenda papers, please indicate. Thank you. All those, any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. We've was that? You don't need people to stand up, do we, again? Twice in one evening is a bit too much. We did, but you're getting a bit older now, Tom, so I don't want to put you through it. Are you going to give me some numbers, Sue, please? Sorry, that was what we were waiting for. Okay, then just for those waiting for the result, it was overwhelmingly carried. I'm pleased to report that motion with the 6 abstentions. Thank you very much, and no votes against. And I will make sure that, assuming I'm still chair of Personnel Committee at that point, which is it's going to have to move pretty quickly to accomplish that, I will make sure that it's appropriately dealt with there with all reasonable haste in the work plan. Thank you very much. No, we don't do breaks in my meetings, as you know, because I find that we get on to the end much quicker if we don't, because there's another incentive. Which again possibly affects the older amongst us more than some of the younger as well. Right, agenda item 13. which relates to civility and respects pledge. I'd like to invite the proposer, Councillor Mike Allen, to speak. Mike.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think that the Civility and Respect Pledge, which has been developed by NALC, is probably aimed to reinforce I'll start again. Civility and respect is something which this council has aimed for, and the NALC Respect Pledge is aimed to bring what is in our constitution into actual practice. Now, the problem I've had in looking for this motion is that one of the people has been instructed by the Standards Committee to apologise for his behaviour towards me, but has not yet decided to do it.
Excuse me, sorry, Councillor Allen, we're still in a confidential matter there. Could you please withdraw that comment for this evening?
At this meeting, that gentleman was asked to apologise.
Councillor Allen, sorry, I'm going to ask you to stop speaking if you don't desist from that. That's an abusive process.
I am going to desist because that beautifully illustrates exactly the need.
Sorry, Councillor Allen, will you please stop speaking? I'm afraid I've warned you enough times. There are confidential matters that I deal with very seriously, as you're aware.
I'm moving on, Chair, to produce...
This is your final warning.
Yes.
If you continue with your breaches of protocol in that fashion, I will insist that you stop speaking and move to the next speaker. So will you please carry on without further reference to any confidential items or any items being dealt with elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Civility and respect is something which is essential in this council. No harassment and intimidation should be occurring in this council. And if this council wishes to institute a code of conduct produced by the Local Government Association, as the Constitution specifically suggests, then this proposed civility and respect project will actually bring it about. And I'm quite rattled at the moment because at present I am concerned that we don't necessarily have good governance arrangements in place, and we do need to examine those. And are we committed to calling out bullying and harassment if and when it happens? And that's a question. Have we continued to learn from best practices in the sector in this council? I don't know. So the proposal is really to come in line with hundreds of other councils and to implement in practice what we've said in our constitution. And I'm going to leave it there because it's quite clear that there's very little else I'm allowed to say.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure how this even relates to what you're saying to the motion, which talks about East Devon District Council to encourage all towns and parish councils to adopt the Civility and Respect Pledge, and by signing the pledge, our councillors agree and the council will treat councillors and so on. That doesn't relate to your comments at all, I'm afraid, Councillor Allen. So hopefully Councillor Moulding, as seconder of this, will shed some light.
Well, yes, I want to just move back to the motion that's before the...
Thank you very much, Councillor Moulding.
Council, which talks about civility and respect. It mentions that the pledge has already been supported by a number of town councils, and that's gratifying to see. And obviously what we're trying to do is to set out standards of behaviour. And I believe that we should be encouraged to do that, and that there should be mutual respect amongst councillors and the people that we serve. And therefore, I would like to second this proposal as written. I think the civility and respect pledge proposal before us, put forward originally by Councillor Mike Allen, is very pertinent to this council, and I would therefore second the proposal and urge members to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Moulding. I've got, as normal practice, I'll go to the supporters first. We've got Councillor Lawrence. Do you wish to add anything?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Councillor Skinner?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hall?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, we're doing well here. Councillor De Sarum? Slam dunk. Right, the next I've got, in terms of speakers, I've got Councillor Hayward. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. I've already made my declaration earlier on this. I am a clerk to 3 parish councils, and I'm honoured that one of my authorities has already signed this pledge to show that it intends to, do the right thing. I am, in principle, supportive of this, and because of the essence of what it's trying to achieve. However, it's a big however, there is one key thing. So I'm going to put forward an amendment, and I hope I'll have a seconder on this, that just says EDDC will encourage all town and parish councils to adopt the civility and respect pledge. Full stop. That's it. That's all you need to do. The reason being is that everything else after that full stop can't apply, because we are not governed by NALC. This pledge is a pledge that applies to town and parish councils. We are not a town or parish council. We are a district principal authority under the auspices of the Local Government Act, the Local Government Act rules, the Local Government Act guidance, and the Local Government Act Code of Conduct, which we have adopted. Other councils may not have, but we have. So essentially, everything on this motion after that full stop is superfluous. I wholly support, and I would, of course, because I'm going to amend it, propose my amendment, that of course we encourage all town and parish councils to adopt the civility and respect pledge, because it's been developed for exactly the reasons, and I think the essence and the nuance of what the proposer, seconder, and supporters are trying to establish. Wholeheartedly agree. I work in the sector. I have been bullied by members at various authorities. I have left jobs because I've been bullied. There is no place for bullying of officers by councillors, of councillors by officers, of councillors by councillors, officers of officers. But in its current form, it is wrong. It cannot possibly go through because it has no basis, because we're not bound by it. It wasn't developed for an authority of our size or legal status. So, Chair, that's my proposal, to amend by scrapping everything after the word pledge in the first sentence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Do I have a seconder, please?
You don't need it. I'm delighted to accept the proposed amendment. Absolutely not sure that he's accurate in respect of which council should be having it, but I'm happy to accept his amendment.
Okay, well that helps makes things a little bit easier, although technically it shouldn't do. It should still go through a second process and potential debate, but I'm quite happy if members are with a quick straw poll. Let the chair go out of hand. All those who are quite happy that we accept Councillor Allen's acceptance. Well, I must admit, Councillor Skinner, I thought it was reasonable to assume that the proposer and seconder were of one mind, but that's perhaps not necessarily always the. Thank you very much, Councillor Moulding. There you go. Happy days. Okay, then. Well, that's quite clear then. So if we're happy with that, the amendment becomes a substantive motion And thank you very much for Councillor Hayward for that. That was extremely helpful. I've got a number more speakers now, which of course are to the revised motion, which deletes everything on the page after respect and pledge at the bottom of the first page. Okay? Thank you very much for that. Speakers I have now, again, hopefully briefly, Councillor Arnott.
Yes, Chair, and I won't go anywhere near the subject, obviously, that Councillor Allen raised erroneously, inaccurately, dishonestly.
I would suggest that that's perhaps best that you equally well don't comment at this
Thank
forum,
you, Chair.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. So I think there is one thing that needs
Excuse me,
to be...
Chair.
Oh.
You told me off for raising this issue. Would you please do the same to be equitable?
I have done exactly the same thing to Councillor Arnott. You may not have heard it over the microphone, but that was just because I had to turn my head sideways to speak to him, and suggested that he didn't go any further down that route in this meeting either. So please accept that as exactly the same rebuke as Councillor Allen received for initiating that approach. Thank you very much. Moving on swiftly.
Chair, I hadn't finished the... It was this
Well,
like
as
a-
long as you don't,
No,
please
it's like
don't
that.
go down that route again,
I think what I was trying to say is I wasn't going to go down that route. So my apologies if I went 2 inches down that route. There is only one councillor in here who in June 2012 was found guilty of 6 counts of standards and was asked to apologise to the council. And I've got the full account here, and I will provide it to members tomorrow by email. So it's not
sorry,
and that
sorry,
is
please.
Councillor Allen.
No, sorry, your attitude. Sorry, right. Please, can you stop that, please, Leader? Now, I'm sorry to stop this, but I'm afraid I'm not having this. It's an abusive process from both parties involved, and I'm not prepared to accept any further discussion on this. I will close the meeting ultimately if it persists. Thank you very much, members. Please, no further comments on that subject. Councillor Ledger, I think is hopefully a safe pair of hands to go next.
I wouldn't bet it. I'm joking.
In your interests, I suggest it is.
I've got nothing really further to add other than my town council that I clerk at was number 1001 as of yesterday, so wholeheartedly support this and hope to see it go through. My OCD went a little bit with the fact it was 1001 and not 1000.
You see, the trouble with that is I remember that as a carpet cleaner, but that's probably... The older amongst us will recognise that product. Right, moving on again. Sarah, Councillor Jackson. Sarah.
Thank you. Just to Anita and Sue, I'm second-guessing myself here at declarations of interest. It should have been to this. I can't remember if I made my declaration to item 14 by accident, but it should have been to this one. Aside from that, I completely support this amendment. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howe. Mike.
I ask that it's been put, please.
Got one more speaker and then we'll do that. Councillor Ingham. Ben. Wonderful agreement. Right, then the motion as presented on your agenda papers, modified to remove everything after East Devon District Council will encourage all towns and parish councils to adopt the Civility and Respect Pledge. Everything after that point is deleted. Could I please see all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? On that basis, that motion's passed unanimously. Thank you very much, members. Agenda item 14 now, recompiling the local plan. I've got this here proposed again by Councillor Allen. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. In the consultation that's just passed, the allocation of new housing and industrial land in the policies in the plan put forward still needed a pending economic needs assessment, needed a pending water cycle policy study, needed an adequate assessment of infrastructure needed, which would significantly affect
the settlements in healthcare, education, highways and broadband. It needed a transport policy update, and it needed more environmental impact reports. And there was no alternative trajectory for housing growth except for the standard method, when in fact the indigenous population of East Devon is shrinking, despite the fact that actually we built 13.5% higher increase in growth compared to an average in the United Kingdom of only 6%. So we have a situation where the consultation was put out with significant gaps in the information which would substantially alter the placing of individual sites. And from that viewpoint, the assessment of need for housing and industrial land didn't follow the NPPF guidance in paragraph 007 reference ID 3 007 201 90722, which reads that the assessment needs to be undertaken and regularly reviewed working with other local planning authorities in the relevant housing market or functional economic area in line with the duty to cooperate. But it's also important to involve landowners and promoters, local property agents, developers, local communities, local enterprise partnerships, businesses and their local representatives, organisations, parish and town councils and neighbourhood planning forums in preparing the site assessments. So the real problem is that not only that, but the software automatically defaulted to neutral if you didn't use the emojis, which is very unfortunate because it didn't then end up with an accurate consultation response in the software. And the software was put through an independent assessment and found very difficult to use. It has been stated that the software has been used before and is still being used. And I think the intrinsic software may not be a problem, but the questions were biased. And for example, in one case, there was no option to say no to the new town that was proposed. You couldn't say no, which was kind of strange. You had to choose an option. So I would propose that strategic planning and the officers should produce a local plan that is actually in conformity with the changes that the NPPF is bringing in, and put right some of the errors in formulating the strategic local plan as it was put out for consultation. It's really a question of making sure that we bring population of East Devon along with us instead of imposing on them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Skinner, I've got as a second, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I sat as many members who sit on strategic planning knows that we sat at strategic planning only last week, and we took a decision there to actually put the strategic plan on hold. It was a recommendation that was put forward by Councillor Arnott at the time, and it was seconded, I believe, by Councillor Violent, so there was a bit of a deliberation over that. But it was supported across the party political piece, might I add, and it was something that was welcomed. I've welcomed the things that many of the issues that Councillor Allen has brought to bear, and in fact, the young lady who was speaking on behalf of, I believe it was Farringdon Parish Council, actually reiterated lots of the issues that Councillor Allen is speaking about here today. But I don't think I need to add much more to that. We do need to understand where the government is coming from regarding the NPPF, and it only makes a common sense approach that until we know exactly what the rules are going to be and the guidelines of which we're going to work to, it would make very little sense to be ploughing on in the old way when in actual fact we could be in a place whereby we might need to change the position we're in. So holding the plan and putting it on deferment until certainly later in the day, and I'm sure it'll probably be after this next election, after the 4th of May, and finding out when the NPPF, when those particular pieces of legislation are going to come through. So as we, and I'm sure other authorities, we want to understand what it is we're working to, what guidelines we're working to, and what policies we'll be working to going into the future. So I'll leave my case there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I ask the portfolio holder to speak, I just want to have a quick check with Councillor Bruce. Have you anything to add? Thank you very much. Councillor Ingham? Don't think Councillor Key's going to be adding anything. So, Councillor Moulding, are you going to make another full house? 2 slam dunks in the same evening. Councillor Ledger, over to you. Could you please comment?
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I start with a question and just clarification on the motion in itself? Because it states a second consultation. Now, is the proposer asking for a second consultation of a Reg 18 consultation again, or is he just asking for another consultation in depth?
Councillor Allen, could you answer that, please?
I think it's a technicality either way, because what really even Ed Freeman has put forward is the need for further consultation, and that consultation does need to be effectively another Section 18, because if it's not wide enough and it doesn't go back over a number of the sites chosen with the new information, then it's invalid.
Councillor Ledger.
Thanks very much, Chair. I wouldn't be voting for another Reg 18. We don't have time to do it. We don't. This plan, if we wish to see it move forward without losing all of the data that we've used previously, needs to be made by 2025, I believe, it's submitted. The timelines to actually achieve that are not realistic. We do not have additional resources to pile into this. If anyone can find more planners, that would be fantastic, but we don't have the resources put into it. Nor do we, I think, have the funds to put. I believe a standard local plan costs, what, 200,000? Probably more. So to go back into that, rescope everything out, I do firmly believe that we are going to have a lot more consultations. We've already said that we need to consult on green wedges. We need to consult on site allocations again. This is a fluid document that will continue to progress as we move forward. But to go back and put the council into a position where we could ultimately, well, it's not a could, we would lose our 5-year land supply. We're already in a declining position at the moment. We will have no chance of gaining a 4-year land supply. And the likes that have happened with the Fennerton Super inquiry would be small fry to what we'd be opening ourselves up to, because we'd be probably 4 or 5 years away from an actually new local plan in position. Now, if this is what the council wishes to do in the other group, that we wish to delay it, change the whole plan, and push it forward like that, that's the risk that you're putting on the whole of the district. That's fine, but I cannot support that. I will not be supporting this. And like I said, I'm more than happy for us to go through more iterations of consultation, and I'm very much for that. I want us to be as open and transparent as possible, and I want us to engage with the communities. But what I won't do is put our communities at risk of unsustainable development, and that's what, through clarification, this motion is currently doing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ledger. Councillor Hayward. Paul. It sounds like I've caught you by surprise. I've been thrown a dummy pass by my vice. There you go. Moving on, Councillor Ingham. Ben.
We've collated so far is invalid based on the premise that the aim of any emerging local plan is different based on us having a new NPPF requirement or set of requirements, then to carry on doing something following the wrong process is crazy, and we would be failing to represent the interests and opinions of all the people who live in East Devon. So I think it's dodgy ground indeed to carry on doing the wrong thing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Ben, Councillor Bruce. Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to go into the details of what's coming out of government at the moment, but the simple fact is we all know, we all must have had the feedback from our residents that that consultation was fundamentally flawed. And I'm not going to get into the debate about whether it's going to cost too much or not. If it's wrong, it's wrong, and it has to be rerun again. That's plain and simple, and I hope you support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else indicating to speak? Councillor Moulding. Andrew.
Yes, I would like to come in, Chair, and obviously we're all aware now that we have got to go back and recompile the local plan. And surely by doing that and making changes, new sites, etc., it is only right that we go into some in-depth consultation with towns and parish councils, with neighbourhood plan forums, so that everybody is aware of exactly what this plan is going to take us forward with. We can't just go ahead on our own without consultation, and that's what this motion actually states.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Councillor Davey. Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen's alluded to a number of reports he thinks should have been presented before the plan went out to consultation. Well, one of the things that has been proposed is that background work continues. We didn't actually vote to pause work on the local plan. We paused work on land allocations for housing and employment land. But the background work, those reports, all of that kind of work is continuing and can continue. Let's be clear, nothing has actually changed at the moment. We've had a statement of intent from Michael Gove, and we can't recompile our plan on the basis of absolutely no evidence. We've got no legislation. We don't know what's coming. We've got a suggestion from Michael Gove, but given the number of U-turns this government has performed so far, I wouldn't lay an awful lot of store by that. So currently, the NPPF, in its current form, still stands, and I think we should proceed on that basis until we know otherwise. Our officers aren't going to waste their time doing work that they know could well be changed in a new draft of the NPPF. So they're not going to waste their time any more than we want them to. The consultation may have been flawed. Consultations often are, but as I understand it, it had a record number of responses. So clearly something worked, because I think we had more public engagement than we've ever had before. So I'm sure it was unsatisfactory for some people, but it's certainly some people managed to get their views across in it. So I cannot support this motion because it is simply asking that we stop, and I think Councillor Ledger has made it quite clear what the implications of that would be.
Thank you, Ollie. Councillor Young. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. The government have literally pulled the policy but hasn't replaced it. The term headless chickens comes to mind. For East Devon, we are probably in a better position than most other authorities as we have a current plan. But as things stand, we haven't a clue if our housing numbers are correct. We haven't a clue if our land supply is sufficient, seeing these were based on figures that are now not mandatory. As it turns out, thank goodness we continued with the draft local plan to the first consultation stage, which hopefully will mean that instead of a 5-year land supply requirement, the government proposal is we only need to demonstrate a 4-year land supply. I don't believe we need to go back to the drawing board. We have a mass of local opinion data we have now received, so let's continue to analyse. This data is exactly what the government wants us to do, with a bottoms-up approach. With all these local opinions, we now have tons of data and evidence. It would be stupid to ignore it. In fact, this feedback will probably demonstrate exactly why we cannot continue with these ridiculous Tory mandate figures. We need to challenge the figures, analyse the data from the consultation, work to continue on the local plan to fill in the missing pieces on the infrastructure, landscape and biodiversity. Once the housing figures are agreed, adjust the emerging local plan accordingly. Continue and improve community involvement and continue with open meetings. This will provide clarity and a clear forward objective for this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Arnott. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I can't really improve on what Councillor Davey and Councillor Young have just said, so I'll keep it incredibly brief. Just pick up a comment that was made about parishes and towns not being consulted. That is completely untrue. My own parish in Collerton responded fully, discussed it many times. So that is a canard that is being put about, and I think it's very unfortunate. I think the other thing that is absolutely the case is that though some people did struggle with the interface, as I believe you call it, with the software, with the commonplace software, thousands of people didn't. And there were options to write in physically, to email, or even to, in some cases, telephone offices. So I think Councillor Ledger has absolutely summarised the arguments for all of the possibilities there are quite clearly, and I believe the Conservatives know full well, for everybody, both members and parishes and towns, to contribute fully. And it's a good thing that the technical work is going on in the background, because if we don't get on with that, then whatever Mr Gove decides, we will be at even greater risk of having schemes enforced on us because we're not getting on with it. So I can't vote for this motion either. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Burholt. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put my parish council hat on here because I'm also chair of the Newton Poppleford and Hertford Parish Council, and I can attest to the fact that we were consulted. We submitted or we made a submission to the consultation, and we don't feel disenfranchised by the consultation process. Could I ask if anybody has obtained any professional advice that states that the consultation would be deemed to be insufficient for the purposes of future inspection of this plan? Is there anyone in this room who's obtained such advice, or is it just their own gut feel?
Through the chair, I'll accept that actually as a relevant question, which wouldn't be the normal way of doing it. Does anybody wish to comment on that or confirm or otherwise? I'm assuming only one I can see is Councillor Ingham. Does that indicate that you have received professional advice on that report?
You need to let me speak and then you'll find out, Chair.
Oh, cheeky.
Yeah. So, Chair, what I'd say is that the argument is that because of the Localism Act, going back to 2012, all our communities were encouraged to create neighbourhood plans. If whilst you create an emerging local plan, you fail to integrate those neighbourhood plans, or at least consult on them, then you are failing to consult coherently with our communities, and you are railroading a district plan without due reference to the Localism Act, which we should be abiding by.
Fine, thank you for that confirmation, Councillor Ingham. You of course managed to jump the queue for speaking and didn't actually answer the question that Councillor Burholt had posed. Chris, could you pick up, please?
Thank you. I do note that Councillor Ingham didn't in fact answer that question, but also I would further point out to his point, Newton Poppleford does have a neighbourhood plan, and we have responded in terms of our neighbourhood plan as part of the consultation. So our points that were made within our neighbourhood plan have been added and submitted as part of our consultation. So I do not understand what people's gripe is with this consultation process. Is it perfect? No, there isn't such a thing. But I think with over 1,000 responses that East Devon District Council, and I had nothing to do with it, have done a damn good job. Finally, I'd like to just commend what Councillor Young said here, that we have a movable feast in terms of the requirement for housing supply. We know that the rug has been pulled on the numbers that we were working to. But what has already been said is that if we halt or reverse this process, then we stand the risk of having no evidential land supply in 2, 3, 4 years' time. And that is open season for developers. And we've been there before, and Newton Poppleford has been at the forefront of that. And I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. On the basis, I'm not going to accept speakers twice, as is normal practice, as you'll be aware in debates like this. But what I will do, on the basis Councillor Bruce is going to add a one-word or answer to the question posed by Councillor Burhop.
Thank you, Chair. I have seen sight of a report, and I'll put my hand up to say that I don't know quite where it came from or who instigated it, but it was circulated within some of my emails. But what I will add to try and answer the question is that my 3 parishes, when I asked them the question about the consultation process, unequivocally said it was very, very difficult to navigate and put an awful lot of people off. So my concern, I'm not interested in what's coming out of Go in the next week or month. That's a completely separate issue. My fundamental concern is, as far as my ward is concerned, the feeling I get from the feedback is that they were not consulted properly, and therefore the whole basis that we're going forward on is flawed. Now, I might be unique with my ward, I don't know, but I suspect there must be other councillors around here who
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Armstrong. Megan.
Oh, sorry, right. It's really awkward when you've got your back to the chair, isn't it? You know,
You should learn that one,
Megan. Yeah, I must say I'm a bit confused about all this, but some of the speakers have said that actually what we're talking about here is, can we go back and keep some of the information that we've already got from the consultation if it was flawed? That's what I'm struggling with. I know from information I've received back from members in my area is that one of the things was that, for example, the officers had changed the boundaries of the built-up area boundaries without any discussion whatsoever, apparently, with the Strategic Planning Committee or other members, and it just appeared. They just appeared in the documents that went out for consultation. Now, that's my understanding of it. I don't know whether that's correct or not, but that was my sincere understanding of it. And that was just one thing that was not right in that consultation. And as has already been said, people found it very difficult to navigate and how to... I found it difficult myself, and that's why I ended up just sending an email, because I found it so difficult to navigate it all. I just sent an email with my comments. But the other thing I thought about was, surely, in relation to Michael Gove and the government, are any other councils in exactly this same position? Does, for example, the government know that we're in this position? I don't know whether they do or not. And surely, what the Chair of Strategic Planning said, that, oh, we're going to be out of time and we're going to this, that and the other. Well, surely the government will understand that we've got difficulties. We've got difficulties here because we're waiting to get the numbers, the exact numbers from the government. And I'm sure we can't be the only council in the country that's coming up against this problem. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm talking out of the top of my head, because I'm not on planning, I'm not on strategic planning, but it just doesn't make sense for us to be revisiting something that was flawed. And I'm not sure what the technicality is for getting around that, but any information we've got in already, if it's based on flawed information going out in the consultation, that seems wrong to me. It just seems wrong.
Thank you, Megan.
I might
No.
just get myself in a bit of a hole there. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Councillor Gazzard, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. It's very unfortunate that Michael Gove made the comments that he did very early on, and he hasn't substantiated them even to today. I can confirm that town and parish councils have been consulted, and I can speak from behalf of Exmouth Town Council that put a lot of work and effort into responding to the consultation document. And that was due to the hard work of the councillors that attended the seminars that we put on. I think it would be totally wrong to... I can't support this motion as it stands, because I think we've got loads of information. As has been said earlier, we've had the most responses to any consultation. We've got a huge amount of information in the responses that have been sent in, and I don't think, and I'll take on what Councillor Dan Ledger has said, is that I don't think it would be right that we could put our ratepayers in a position of where we would have a big legal bill if we were challenged on it. So I honestly do think we need to move forward, compile what we've got, and I think I'm right in saying that there will be another consultation later on afterwards when all the information has come forward. So there will, as I understand it, there will be another consultation.
Well, just for the record, Councillor Ledger was nodding when you were saying that, so I'm assuming that was he was agreeing with you and confirming.
Yeah. So
briefly, Councillor Ledger.
I can't agree. I can't support the motion, Chair.
One second, Councillor Gallagher.
Oh, sorry.
As I stated earlier, we are going to have multiple further consultations on green wedges, infrastructure, transport.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful.
Multiple consultations.
My
This is only the start.
My apologies for interrupting you, Councillor Gazzard, but I thought the confirmation might be helpful.
Appreciate that, Chair, thank you. And yes, I accept what Councillor Ledger has said, but I think that we should, you know, I can't support the motion as it's on the order paper.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howe, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. I don't physically have a problem with the motion on the order paper. What I do have is an explanation of what the proposer and the seconder are proposing. And that is where Councillor Ledger questioned whether it was back to a Regulation 18 consultation. Because the consultation on the NPPF, Chapter 226, is quite clear about the implications of that. If we go back to a Regulation 18 consultation, we have to have a 5-year housing land supply. Now, those of us on strategic planning know we don't already have a 5-year housing land supply. But Mr. Gove, when he does publish this finally in the coming months, has said that's fine. If you've done a Regulation 18 consultation, you only have to have a 4-year housing land supply for 2 years. And it is clear and precise. But as this motion stands at this minute in time, and as the proposer and seconder have put forward, they are throwing us off a cliff as a council. We can't do that. We have to stick with the Regulation 18 we've already done. But I do fully accept the sentiment they're making in that the consultation was abysmal, and at some point we need to go back and reconsult. After the next election it will definitely be, and it will certainly be after the NPPF is done, on the new numbers and where they're going to be. But we cannot go back to Regulation 18 consultation, because we are in a terrible state if we do, and we're in a bad enough state as we are now. It's as simple as that. So I cannot vote for this at this time, but I would hopefully, if you can come up with a change to what you're saying, to go along with what Councillor Ledger's actually said and actually enforce the consultations you do want, but not back to a Regulation 18. And the other question was, have other councils stopped? Over 20 now have stopped. That was up to 2 weeks ago because of this. But again, they've done what we've done, paused, because we're all waiting to see what the hell comes next. It's as simple as that. Anyway, please consider what you're doing.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Johns, Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also the Chair of Ottery St Mary.
Call Councillor Johns, Councillor Allen.
How
Please
rude.
continue.
Civility, thank you. Yeah, Chair, I'm also the Chair of Ottery St Mary Town Council, and we were consulted, and we did reply, and we do have a neighbourhood plan that is currently ongoing. Was I particularly happy with the site allocations that have been put forward? Of course I wasn't. Who here is happy with any of the site allocations that have been put forward? But do we have a choice? Of course we don't. We don't choose the sites that are put forward. The landowners choose the sites. So it's not just a question. Excuse me, civility, thank you. Remember the motion.
Could you please just stick to the contribution, please, Councillor Johns? Thank you.
Well, if people weren't being rude, Chair, thank you.
Please continue.
So it's already been discussed that there is further work to be done, and it is being done. Ed Freeman has already confirmed at the last scrutiny meeting that there will be further consultations. This has all been discussed in the scrutiny meeting. There was no proper answer to Councillor Burhop's question, unless you take no. There was no reports to come back, for this motion. And as far as I can see, the government have just dropped a massive change, and they chop and change like the wind. Michael Gove has basically just muddied the waters. It's strange how we're so close to election and then this sort of thing happens. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody can support this motion if it's going to leave us open to all sorts of issues in the future. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Councillor Faithful, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from the comments by Councillor Bruce about the public not, not understanding the process or whatever you want to say, I would agree with that, but I'm not quite sure how much putting them through another consultation would help, because I think it would just end up still being confused. I think some of it is councillors as well. There's been a bit of confusion, because perhaps Councillor Ledger might clarify. I know one of the questions was about the movement of the built-up area boundary, but my understanding is the plots of land, by definition, move the built-up area boundary if you include a piece of land onto it. Yeah. And that's the sort of questions that were being thrown around. So I do think there is if there's some sort of follow-up consultation, which Councillor Ledger is saying, I would support that. Exactly what they should look like, I'm not sure, but I do think, how we'll get around the question of people understanding everything, I don't think we'll ever get there.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Hall, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This administration, we voted to come out the GASP. We didn't mind stepping backwards, winding the clock back to get it right. We are in a situation now, we've got this motion which says, let's get it right. There needs to be further consultation. And as Councillor Johns just said, we were there at the budget setting. And I did ask questions of the strategic lead regarding areas of concern about the phosphates and nutrients in the Yax Valley. And I will be consistent. I did say 10 and a half years. The strategic lead said no, he feels it's 2.5 years. But it came to that neither of us knew. So we in the Yax Valley area, we can't offer any solutions to this 5-year or 4-year land supply. But what we do need to do is get this right. And all I would ask, Chair, I do not see anything wrong with this motion in any way or form. So therefore, can we move to the vote?
Thank you very much, Ian. I've got one more speaker I'm going to take and then invite Councillor Allen to sum up. But the first speaker is Councillor Hayward, assuming he didn't put his hand up in error again. Is this...
Oh, that's very harsh, Chair. 3 very quick points. So, as a clerk in East Devon for 3 parishes, so I received the email 3 times. Every clerk received details of this consultation. in a variety of different ways, by whether it's East Devon press releases, newsletters, but we specifically received it. So each clerk had the opportunity, in conjunction with their chair, to table an agenda item for this to be discussed. If those clerks and those chairs chose not to, then that's who their community should look to say, why did the parish councils not take the opportunity? It was afforded to them. That's what East Devon do. They consult with town and parishes, and it was done properly and professionally. On the second point of the consultation, yes, everyone in this room would have heard criticism of consultations, that they're foregone conclusions, that no one at East Devon listens, we're all tin-eared. But actually, I'm heartened by the consultation response is also the fact that if there is an overwhelming groundswell of opinion, that our officers and councillors and members in this room will say, okay, maybe we need to rethink it. It isn't helped by national government changing the rules at the last minute, pulling the rug out from underneath us, filling statements such as, sufficient. I mean, these ambiguous, woolly phrases they throw into their edicts. What does that mean? Sufficient for whom? But that aside, this is an incredibly complex consultation. It's not consulting on whether the jam goes on first or the cream goes on first. And the fact is, we live in a digital age. Most consultations have to be done digitally, but we offered the option to do it in paper form. I don't envy any officer who has to wade through a paper submission and pick out the key points, but they will, because that's what the consultation process does. That's why it's so expensive. And for my own authority in Axminster, we printed out at our own cost, because we wanted to be seen as a forward-thinking, helpful authority, bound paper copies of the local plan document, the draft. We also printed out a selection of formatting forms for members of the public. If they didn't feel comfortable with filling it online, they could do it in a paper form. We enabled that because we wanted to ensure that people could consult. But you cannot just put it down as, oh, well, it's really complicated, so therefore my views aren't important, or I didn't engage because it's so complex. Of course it's complex. You're talking about development in East Devon for decades to come. It isn't a binary question. It's complex for a reason, because also we are asked complex questions by national government. And if we give them simple Jack and Jill, run, spot, run answers, we'll be found wanting. So I can't support this. I believe the consultation was done properly, that every parish and town council was given the fair opportunity to have their say. If they did not take it up, that's their issue, not East Devon District Councils. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Allen. Mike, would you briefly sum up, please?
Well, I hope I can sum up in a very simple way. Please read the motion. The motion is not saying go back to section 18. And both Councillor Ledger and others have made it clear that work is still proceeding, and that if the need becomes only for a 4-year land supply, and if we lose the need for a 15% buffer, then we don't need a new town. And that's critical in its importance. A lot of what Councillor Young said is accurate, and so with Councillor Hayward, but they're missing the point. The point is simple. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And this consultation was put out without the necessary information and using a piece of software that was faulty. Those two things mean there needs to be further in-depth consultation, and that's what the motion is saying. For heaven's sake, please, we're talking about an absolutely fundamental democratic issue here, not a party political one. The issue is do we need to put the consultation right? And the answer is we didn't do it well enough by any means. And that's all this motion is saying. We need to proceed with a second in-depth consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. I'm going to go straight to the vote now, please. All those in favour of the motion as presented, please raise your hands. We're going to need to have you standing up again, I'm afraid. And only put one hand up, please, Councillor Hall. Have you?
I'd have a recorded vote.
It's a tad late, I'm afraid.
Not really.
Not once it's already been called. I'm not going to accept that.
Chair, you didn't allow Councillor Skinner, who was indicating and requesting a recorded
Councillor
vote.
Allen, please. We're in the middle of a vote now. Would you please desist and behave? Thank you. 18. Right. All those against, please. Would you please raise? All right, the motion is lost. I believe, is it 18 votes to 24? So thank you very much. Please don't jump out and run away like you did last meeting, because I've got to read my little bit at the end here now. So this brings our council meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everyone, including the members of the public and anybody still with the stamina to be watching on our YouTube channel, for your attendance. Members, can I remind you that until the Democratic Services team confirm that live streaming and recording has stopped, you can still be seen, heard, and any comments made may still be recorded. On another note, thank you ever so much for your attendance this evening, and I'd like to thank our members of the public who joined us, and perhaps those who know them would pass those thanks on. Thank you very much, everybody. They think it's all over. It is now.